Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 24 playthrough of the Cincinnati Reds. We are just past the trade deadline in this 2025 season, and it's been a very disappointing year for the Reds thus far. 46-57 record, last in the NL Central, 7.5 games behind the Cubs, and we are 7 games out of the wild card, tied with the Mets and the Rockies, with a bunch of teams that we would need to jump over to get back into the playoff hunt. But we were a playoff team last year, and despite our poor record, and despite the fact that we ranked 28th out of 30 in the latest power rankings, we are trying to get back into contention. The team statistics were 4 games under our Pythagorean record, so we should be 50-53. We should be better than we are. We're coming off a brutal 8-17 July. Right now, we're right in the middle of the pack in runs scored, tied for 8th in the NL, and we're towards the back of the pack, 12th in runs allowed as August begins. But we have made some changes that hopefully will make us more competitive. We've picked up Chris Paddock and Max Meyer in recent weeks, and we've installed both of them into our starting rotation at this point to take over for Kyle Wright and Huascar Inoa, who have both had pretty brutal years. I know some of you think I should have pulled the cord on both of them earlier. May have stuck with them too long, but feel like with Burns, Lodolo, Paddock, Nola, and Meyer, we've got a very talented starting rotation. They haven't pitched up to their ratings and pitched up to my expectations thus far this year, with the exception of Lodolo, who's having another excellent season. But I think we definitely have an above-average starting rotation, even though the numbers don't suggest that at this point. And I tend to try to be patient before making moves, which you obviously just saw with the pitching staff with Inoa and Wright. But based on feedback from some comments to our last episode, notably from Three Quarters Badger and Matt Jones, I have made some big moves to the 26-man roster as far as our position players. Also brought Matthew Nelson back up as our backup catcher. I don't love the below-average catcher ability, but he did hit incredibly well in a brief stint up with us this year, .364 average, far outperforming what he actually did in AAA Louisville. But felt like it was time to make a move there. So we sent down our backup catcher, Daniel Vejahin. He's better defensively, but he's hitting just $165 in 121 at-bats. He's been below replacement level given his poor bat, even with more than adequate defense. So just feel that potentially bringing Mr. Nelson on board could give us a little offense. We've also made a move at shortstop. Nick Ahmed, the veteran, is going to the bench. Love his defensive ratings, and he's had a pretty solid year defensively with a 7.4 zone and a 1.08 defensive efficiency rating. But the bat's been brutal. He's hitting a .197. His contact rating is just 35, and he's barely above replacement level this year. So we've brought up Edwin Arroyo, the shortstop from AAA. His glove is not as good. He's got the same range, but he's 5 points lower than Ahmed in error, arm, and turning double plays. But he's hitting .278 with 21 doubles and 16 homers down in AAA. Certainly that contact of 50 suggests that he should be a more effective offensive player than Nick Ahmed was. And with the number of teams that we have to jump over to get back into contention for either the division or the wild card, figured it was time to make a change today. And the last trade, or the last change we made, we can't make trades since it's August 1st at this point. And to make room for young Mr. Arroyo on the roster. We just sent down outfielder Will Benson, hitting just 220. He does have 12 homers and 264 at-bats, but with the recently promoted Matt McLean on the team, who can also play left field for us in a pinch, we feel that we've got enough outfielders to bring up the extra infielder. Keep Ahmed on the roster as our best backup defensive shortstop in case Arroyo gets hurt. Didn't want to risk losing him. And the final thing we did, we made a change in center field. If you've been looking closely, you can see that we sent down TJ Friedel to AAA. He's also had a bad season, hitting just 218 this year with 3 homers, 261 at-bats, negative WAR on the season as well, despite the fact that he's got a decent range and error rating. And here we promoted Jay Allen II. I don't know that his bat is going to be any better than Friedel's. He was hitting just 253 in AAA for us this year. But his glove is even better than Friedel's. So at the very least, we're going to get better defense out in center field, having Jay Allen II out there. And, Friedel's hitting 218 with a 617 OPS. I tend to think we can probably get that from Jay Allen II with better defense. Kei Kodama is also going to remain in the mix, but because he's just not as good defensively, going to still use him more as a backup outfielder. Try to play him against left-handed pitching, given that he's a right-handed hitter. He's actually going to slot into our new revamped lineup as our left fielder against left-handed hitting to get him a little bit of playing time. Allen in center. Will slide Austin Hendrick over to right and let Kelnick DH against left-handed pitching. So everyone except Matthew Nelson and Nick Ahmed is in the lineup as a starter against either righties or lefties. Certainly big moves. Arroyo starting shortstop and Jay Allen now our starting center fielder, neither of whom has ever had a major league at-bat in their life. Our backup catcher, Matthew Nelson, has 33 at-bats in the majors all this year. And Matt McLean is back up after spending most of this year in AAA. So we didn't spend a lot in the trade market to bring on Meyer and Paddock. And we didn't really spend anything. We just shifted our team around to bring up some of the AAA guys. But my thought was, we've got a lot of teams that we've got to get by, and we've got a limited amount of time to do it. Didn't feel that Ahmed, Vejahin, and Friedel were doing much for us. As we saw with their stats, they were all kind of replacement level or worse. So let's give some other guys a chance to fill those roles and hope that particularly with the upgrade in defense in center field and a still pretty decent defensive shortstop in Arroyo, we can help our pitching staff defensively and hopefully get this season turned around over the last 2 months. And taking a look at our schedule for the month of August, this new balanced schedule doesn't give us a lot of opportunities against the teams that we are chasing in the NL Central, unfortunately. We've got 4 home games against the Cubs. That is all we have in the month of August against the NL Central teams that we're chasing. So there's enough time left that we don't have to be beating them all head-to-head. If we can go and have a good 17, 18 win month for the month of August, that'll get us right back into the race. But now it's a matter of seeing whether this team can go out on the field and do that. As August begins, Ellie De La Cruz, who's having the best offensive season of anyone on our team, in a big, tight race for the NL batting title, also leading the NL in stolen bases, OPS, and batter WAR. So the young first baseman definitely MVP potential season. Nick Lodolo is second in the National League in wins. As I talked about, I expect that our starting pitching should be better. Right now we are 13th in starters ERA, 12th in overall runs allowed, If we can get both of those numbers a couple notches higher over the month of August, we may be able to put the 16, 17, 18 win month that we really need to get back into contention together. In the month of August, off to a mediocre start. We lost 2 out of 3 in Washington, and our now backup shortstop, Nick Ahmed, just diagnosed with an oblique strain, going to be out for about 3 weeks. I like his glove, but honestly, whoever we bring up is going to have a better bat than Ahmed, so we're going to lose a little defensively when we have to play a backup shortstop most likely, but we should get a better bat than we had with Ahmed. So hopefully it's not the end of the world to lose our backup shortstop here for most of the month of August. And our young second baseman, Nelvi Marte, just had a nice week. NL Player of the Week, 11 for 30 with 4 homers and 7 ribbies. For the year, he's hitting .262 with 21 homers. Been one of our better offensive players. And we just had one of our best weeks of the season. We swept the series at the Mets, and then we took 3 out of 4 at home against the Cubs. Still in last place, but only 5 games behind, 7 games under 500 still. So made up a little bit of ground over the past week. As I mentioned, 5 games out in the Central, and we are only 4 games out of the wild card, 7-3 over our last 10. So if we can keep playing like that, and as I said, string together 16, 17, 18 wins, something like that here in the month of August, I think we can get ourselves in a position where we're playing important games in the final weeks of September, which will hopefully result in us sneaking into the playoffs. And things are starting to go well for the Reds with our revamped lineup. We took 2 out of 3 against the Dodgers at home, and then we took 2 out of 3 at Detroit. So another week where we're stringing some series wins together. We've won 4 consecutive series at this point. Going to be at San Francisco and at Houston over the next week before we come home to finish off the month home against the White Sox and home against the Rockies. Still 5 games behind, still in 5th place, but everyone in the division is playing decently, it seems, or maybe there's a different team in first place. I can't remember who was in first last week. 4.5 behind in the wild card right now. So been some teams playing some good baseball, but we are at least among them and hopefully can continue playing well. Would love to see us win 3 of these last 4 series in the month of August before we get to September roster expansion and bring up some help. Unfortunately, our results over the past week were mixed. We swept the series in San Francisco, which was great, but then we got swept on the road against the Astros. So it's still been a solid month, but not quite as good as we need. We are in 4th place now, but further behind, 5.5 back in the division, and we are 4 back in the wild card. Still a lot of teams for us to jump over in both of those races. Certainly losing, getting swept in any series is going to really hurt us at this point as time gets short in the season. Hopefully, at the very least, we can take 3 out of 5 at home against the White Sox in Colorado and get a game closer to 500. Certainly would love to win 4 or 5, but as long as we have a winning record over this last week in August, we're moving in the right direction. The question will be whether we're moving fast enough, given the limited time we've got left in the season, to make up a lot of games and pass a lot of teams in the standings. And we did end up getting 4 wins in those last 5 games. Unfortunately, the last game of the month we just lost to Colorado, but we swept the series against the White Sox, ended up being a doubleheader because of rain on Tuesday, and then won the first 2 against Colorado. So we are only a game and a half behind in the very mediocre NL Central as September begins. 4th place, though, so the standings are very tight. 4 teams separated by a game and a half, 5 teams separated by 3 games in the very mediocre NL Central. But we certainly have as good a chance as anybody to win it. Wild card still going to be tough, 3.5 games back. Got to jump a number of teams to get there. Quite honestly, the most plausible path to the playoffs for us is to win the division. That's obviously the most plausible path to the playoffs for any team in our division, though, given that it's so tight. Taking a look at the team statistics, we got 18 wins, 18-9. So we had the type of month that we needed to get right back into things, and we actually made up a lot of ground on our Pythagorean record. We're only 1 game worse than we're expected to be, and we're expected to be right at 500. Runs scored, we're 9th. I believe we were tied for 8th, so we've actually dipped a bit in terms of our offense. But the pitching is getting better. We're up to 7th in the National League in runs allowed. Starters ERA 4.65, 12th, still not quite where we want it to be. Bullpen ERA is 3rd. So we've made a little bit of progress in the pitching staff. Most importantly, we made progress on the field, 18-9 record over the month. I'll take a quick look at how some of our new additions have been playing. Max Meyer, 2-2 with a 6.07 ERA, so he has not helped stabilize things at all in that 5th spot in the rotation. Burns is up to 11-6, has an ERA under 4. Lodolo, 14-10, 3.15. Nola has his ERA down to 4.53. Not a great year at 9-12, but that ERA was up over 6 a couple of months ago, so he has been pitching better. And then Paddock on the year, 10-11, 4.52. With us, he's 2-3 with a 3.92 ERA. So he at least seems to have stabilized things where we have 4 pitchers doing respectably in the rotation. Our question is going to be, do we go with Max Meyer, Kyle Wright, Huascar Noah, Clark Schmidt, Will Warren, or somebody else as our 5th starter down the stretch? And we will have some more options. We sent Nick Ahmed to the rehab assignment in AAA 5 days ago. Going to bring him up to give us some better defense. And then we are also going to bring up Reversa Martin, who got injured and got caught in a numbers game, but he's been a good pitcher for us over the years. Good to have the lefty back. Quite honestly, he's someone who I might think about for that 5th spot in the rotation as well for this last month of the year. And we'll take a quick look at the everyday players that we brought up. Matthew Nelson is backup catcher. Batting average going down to 316, but still a WAR of 0.6 for the year. So he's at least been a better than replacement level type player for us. The young shortstop, Edwin Arroyo, hitting just 207. So not giving us much more than Nick Ahmed did offensively. But I think we'll stick with the youngster. We're winning games now at a rate that we weren't beforehand. And then Jay Allen, the 2nd in center field, hitting just 206. We thought he was probably going to struggle to hit. Basically a replacement level player for us thus far. But that glove out in center field is better than we had with Friedel. And he's really not hitting that much worse than Friedel was. I guess, theoretically, Friedel's OPS was higher than the sickly 528 that Jay Allen has put up. And he has struck out 39 times in 102 at-bats, which is, when you're striking out 40% of the time and you're not a home run hitter, that is a pretty brutal statistic. But as I said, I don't think I'm going to change anything because we are 18-9 since we made those big changes. If we play ball at an 18-9 rate, winning 2/3 of our games over this next month, we're definitely going to be a playoff team when all is said and done. So my thought is, if it ain't broke, don't try to fix it. And we'll see if we can keep the momentum going here in the month of September. And manager David Bell wants to put Huascar Noah back in the rotation as our fifth starter. I can't do that. He and Kyle Wright have both had an ample opportunity this year, and their ERAs are both around 6. Didn't work with Max Meyer. We're going to see if we can find lightning in a bottle, perhaps with Clark Schmidt. He's only started one game for us this year, has put up a 2.95 ERA pitching out of the bullpen. He's got a 5-pitch arsenal. He's a ground ball pitcher. Maybe take advantage of some decent defense in our infield. I'm grasping at straws now. I feel like we've got 4 solid guys with Burns, Lodolo, Paddock, and Nola now. In general, their numbers have been trending in a better direction over the last month and a half. Hopefully Schmidt can give us 5 or 6 decent starts the rest of the way here in the month of September and into October. Do have a little bit more action against the teams that we're competing with in the NL Central. Start off with 3 at Pittsburgh this week. Then we go to Philadelphia to finish off a first week in September spent against the Pennsylvania teams. Looks like we're also at the Cubs and at the Brewers this month in terms of divisional rivals. And then we're going to start a home series against the Brewers the last day in September. And then into October, we've got 2 more with the Brewers and then 3 at home against Pittsburgh. So we'll finish with 6 games at home against divisional rivals. The question is how important those games are going to be, given how tight the NL Central is. My thought is that they might be pretty important, and that's certainly my hope. And it was an okay start to the month of September. Unfortunately, we need weeks that are better than okay. We did take 2 out of 3 on the road against the division rival Pirates, but then we lost 2 out of 3 home against the Phillies. We're at the Cubs and at the Blue Jays this next week. Take a look at see where we are in the standings. The Cubs are tied with us, a game and a half behind in second, so certainly that's going to be a critical series. And the Blue Jays are only a game and a half in the AL East, a 72-win team. So that's not going to be an easy road trip for us. 4.5 behind, tied with 4 other teams, 4.5 behind for the final wild card spot. So the most plausible path to the playoffs continues to be winning the NL Central. We don't have any games left with the Cardinals, who are leading the division, so certainly it's going to be important to take at least 2 out of 3 against the Cubs, even though we are going to be on the road. And as we move further into September, you can see Elly De La Cruz still in the battle for a batting title, battle to lead the league in steals, right up there in OPS and batter war still, although Michael Harris from the Braves out with a strained back now, but definitely taking over the lead in batter war. Nick Lodolo continues to remain second in the National League in wins, having another really nice year for us. And we just had the type of road trip we needed. We swept the Cubs, and we took 2 out of 3 in Toronto. So now the goal is to keep the momentum going at home. We've got 4 against the Marlins and 3 against the Mets at home this week. We're right there in the standings now, half game behind the Cardinals. We finally have a winning record. The Mets and the Marlins are the 2 worst teams in the NL East. We've really got to win both of those series at home. We're 2 games back in the wild card, so we're closer than we have been to a playoff spot in quite some time at this point. Just need to make sure that the momentum we have coming off of that good road trip is not wasted. We've got to take advantage. Certainly come out of this week with a winning record. I said we want to win both series. At the very least, we want to be 4-3. And quite honestly, we want to be 5-2 or better. We'll see what we can do, but playing against those 2 teams that are basically out of it because of the division they're playing in, hopefully we can feast on them here in mid to late September. And we did get a win in the first game against the Marlins, 7-0. See who was on the mound there for us. Corbin Burns, 8 2/3, 3 hits, 11 strikeouts, record up to 12-6, ERA down to 3.58. So the big free agent acquisition has started to pay dividends for us recently. Issue, which is not great news, we just lost the young left fielder, Austin Hendrick. I thought there was an email about that, but I guess not. But there must have been an email about it because there's not any other way that I would really know it. But Austin Hendrick, moderate impact from a strained oblique for the next 2 weeks. I think we'll probably put him on the IL. Batting average is down to 238, but he does still have 20 homers for us and 442 at-bats. He hit 58 homers in the minors for us last year, which is why he had nothing left to prove in the minors. He's been a useful player for us, but we do have a guy who can help us down in AAA, so we're going to try to make sure that the guys on our roster are as healthy as possible. But Wilyer Abreu, who was a Rule 5 acquisition of ours a season ago, spent the whole year with us in 2024. He's been in AAA this whole year, learning how to diversify a little bit. He's been playing first base recently. Hit 265 down there with 25 homers. I don't think he's as good as Hendrick, but he's not a bad bat to be able to bring up and hopefully give us a little help here in these final weeks of the season as we try to make this homestand, the second to last homestand of the year for the Reds, a successful one. And our Red squad is finally getting hot at the most opportune time. Won 8 in a row before losing the last game of the homestand to the Mets. But we swept 4 games against Miami, took 2 out of 3 against the Mets. So a 6-1 week for the Reds as we continue to win series. We've won every series since the Phillies series, so 4 series victories in a row now. And taking a look at the standings, we're only up a game on the Cardinals, who are playing well now, but we are in first place for the first time all season, basically. And the Cardinals are 2 games back for that wild card spot, so it's going to be important that we hold them off. But we've got the record up to 78-71. We're playing our best baseball of the year, clearly, but playoffs are certainly not guaranteed. We're at Milwaukee and at Miami this week before finishing off with Milwaukee and the Pirates, as we talked about earlier. We know we just swept Miami at home. They're eliminated from the playoffs now. Certainly hope we can do some damage against them on the road. And Milwaukee has slipped back a bit. They are 8 games behind in the Central now. Elly De La Cruz still battling to lead the league in batting and stolen bases. Taking a look at the pitching, Nick Lodolo, 16 wins. Not going to pass Cade Cavalli, who's already got 20 for Washington, and Clay Holmes, who's had a really nice year for us as our closer, 38 saves, 1.95 ERA on the season. So we're in the best spot that we've been in quite some time after the really good baseball that we've been playing in August and now in September, but we're only up a game on the Cardinals, so it's still going to be a tight battle. Got to win 4 games on this road trip before we come home. If we can go 4-3 on this road trip, I'm going to be feeling reasonably decent about our chances with 6 games at home to finish off the season. And before we play those games, we'll check in on Clark Schmidt, who we did put in as the number 5 starter, and he's been pitching pretty well for us. Take a look at his game log since he got back into the rotation. Game scores of 77, 52, and 61. Only a 1-1 record, but he's only allowed 2 earned runs over 16 1/3 innings pitched. So he's been pretty effective for us since he went back into the starting rotation. And our Reds have been finishing the season strong. We took the series in Milwaukee, 3 out of 4, and we've already clinched the series in Miami, winning the first 2 games. Pausing right here because we also now have the opportunity to bring Austin Hendrick back off of the injured list. We'll see what Wilyer Abreu did while he was up, only hitting 172 on the year. I know his average was on the interstate when we brought him up. Negative WAR at the major league level, so we will send him back down to AAA, bring Hendrick back up to get back into the starting lineup. We've got 7 games left. Taking a look at the standings. We're up 4.5 on the Cardinals now. Our magic number is down to 3. The Cardinals are 2.5 back on the Padres for that final wild card spot. So as we have been kind of talking about throughout the season, the most logical path to the playoffs was winning the Central, and we're not there yet, but we're up 4.5 games with 7 to go. Just got a good young bat, Hendrick, off of the IL. We've gotten to 83 wins, so we've matched the win total from last year when we were a wild card team. And we've definitely turned this season around since we made the trades for those 2 pitchers. And perhaps just as importantly, we cut bait with our starting center fielder, demoted our starting shortstop out of the starting lineup, and moved on to a new backup catcher. And don't know how great those players have all been. When we checked in on them at the beginning of the month, none of them were having incredible seasons for us. I guess we can check in now rather than just guessing. But the team has been playing better since we brought him on board. Nelson, not surprisingly, his batting average has dipped to 259, still stuck on 4 home runs. So he has been a little less productive as a backup. Edwin Arroyo, average up to 229, OPS over 600, not great, but again, he's hitting just as well or better than Nick Ahmed, whose batting average for the year is $192 with a 549 OPS. And last but not least, Jay Allen. He's got his batting average up to 258. So with the excellent glove that he has, he's put up a 1.3 WAR for us in 49 games. Definitely more production than we were getting out of TJ Friedel, with 59 strikeouts now through 194 at-bats. That means his strikeout rate has actually come down a bit over the last 3 or 4 weeks. So going to figure out how to get Hendrick back in the lineup. And our Reds are somewhat surprisingly closing in on potentially clinching an NL Central title, as well as obviously a berth in the playoffs. So never give up hope. And unfortunately, we lost to Miami, but still took 2 series on the road. We've won 6 series in a row at this point, finishing off with 3 against Milwaukee and then 3 against Pittsburgh. Check in on what St. Louis did yesterday, and they did win, so they're 3.5 back. Our magic number's still stuck at 3. They're only a game and a half out of the wild card. Milwaukee's out of it at this point. We've got 3 games at home against them. They've lost 4 in a row. The hope is certainly to win this series against Milwaukee and hopefully get the NL Central clinched before we even have to play against Pittsburgh. And we won the first game of our series against the Brewers to get the magic number down to 2, because St. Louis also won. Brewers really fading into the stretch here. 5-3 win for us. Magic number down to 2 with 5 games to go. And with our 84th win, we've exceeded our win total from last year now. Would certainly love to get it to about 88. There's honestly an outside chance that we could get past the Diamondbacks for the second best record among a division winner. Clearly a long shot, but they have lost 5 in a row at this point. If they and the Dodgers keep struggling down the stretch. It's certainly a long shot, and our real goal is just to win the NL Central, but would obviously love to have the opportunity to have a little time off and home field advantage for a 5-game series rather than have to face a 3-game wild card series. And we got another win against the Brewers, 5-3. The Cardinals also lost, so we are the NL Central Division winners. Still a game and a half behind Arizona. I don't think we've got enough time with 4 games left to get past them. I mean, honestly, when you look at where we were at the start of the month of August, to have clinched the NL Central with 4 games left to go is a pretty big step in the right direction for us. I mean, we can now honestly start thinking about ensuring that our pitching staff is set up the way that we want it to be for the wild card series that we will likely end up in. Looks like Schmidt is ready to go today. Burns pitched yesterday, so with 4 games left, he's not going to pitch again, so we'll have our ace on the staff. Lodolo pitched 5 days ago, so Lodolo will likely pitch tomorrow. First game against Pittsburgh, then he'll have a couple games off. There will be a day in between, and then Burns will be pitching the first day of the series, or there'll be at least one day in between. So I think we're okay there. And then Paddock and Nola. Nola just pitched. We may look to bring up somebody if Paddock is supposed to pitch either the second or third game against Pittsburgh. Maybe we adjust things a bit, but I think we're in a pretty good spot at this point, with Burns likely to pitch the first game, or with Burns likely done for the year at this point. We want to make sure we don't pitch him again. But 15-6, 3.30 ERA, over 200 innings pitched, 210 strikeouts, 124 ERA plus, 84 FIP minus, and a 4.3 WAR. He's not going to win a Cy Young Award, but for a guy that we needed to come in and be a number 1 starter for us this year, he's definitely fit the bill. Would be great if Nola could get one more win in his final start of the year to get that record up to 500, but at least he's been healthy this year. Schmidt's been great since we put him into the 5-hole, and then Lodolo having another good year. So the pitching has definitely helped stabilize things for us over these last month and a half or so of the season. And we did just win against Milwaukee to sweep the series. Taking a look at the standings, Diamondbacks are a game ahead of us now with 3 to go. So we'll keep monitoring things. It's obviously very unlikely we're going to get past them, but if there's a chance that we can somehow sneak into the second best record among a division winner and get a first round bye, we've probably got to play for it. So we're going to sim one game at a time and see how things go. And just to check in, Schmidt was good again. 1 earned run over 5 2/3 innings, ran his record to 8-4, barring an injury. He won't be in the 4-man rotation in the playoffs, but he's definitely really stabilized that number 5 spot in the rotation for us over the month of September. And another win for our Reds, and we are now in a flat-footed tie with the Diamondbacks. 7-0 victory. Lodolo, 5 2/3 innings of shutout ball. Obviously, Will Warren and Huascar Inoa with no runs allowed either. Team only allowed 2 hits. I mean, we're in a flat-footed tie with Arizona. I guess now is the time for us to look and see what the season series was with the Diamondbacks, because that could definitely inform what we do. And obviously there's a chance that the Dodgers catch the Diamondbacks, but with us being 2 games up on the Dodgers, hopefully we don't end up in a tiebreaker with them. Maybe I'll check on who they're playing. Are they playing each other? It would be great if they were. No, they're playing San Francisco. So they're playing a team that's out of it. So they've got a pretty easy schedule, but Pittsburgh's out of it now, so we don't have a crippling schedule either. Taking a look at the team-by-team standings for our National League here, and our Cincinnati Reds were 4-3 against Arizona. So we would have the tiebreaker. It's shocking to think about that we could somehow end up with a bye for the first round of the playoffs, but I think we've got to keep rolling out our pitchers, at least today with Paddock, and see what happens. And we got another win, 4-2. Paddock with a quality start, 4 hits, no earned runs over 6 innings. Brule and Meyer with scoreless relief. Clay Holmes actually did give up a run in the 9th, but still got his 44th save of the season, 88-73. And the Diamondbacks lost. So I think based on the fact that we took the season series from them, we have somehow clinched a first-round bye in the playoffs, which is absolutely shocking. Given that Nola is at this point our 4th starter, I am going to go pitch him anyways. I think that they have updated in OOTP 24, so they now follow the new Major League rules that were put in a year ago, that there are no tiebreaker games. So I think we've clinched at this point. But as I said, Noel is our 4th starter anyways, so we're going to have Burns, Lodolo, and Paddock ready to go for a 3-game series if we do end up by some strange twist of fate. Shout out to the late Olivia Newton-John. If we do end up by some strange twist of fate having to play in a wild card series, we're going to have our top 3 guys lined up anyways, but hopefully it will not come to that and Nola can pitch us into the playoffs. It's been an incredible finish to the season for our Reds. And we did get a win on the final day of the season. You can see Ellie De La Cruz didn't end up winning the batting title, but was a 30-30 player. Rookie Noel V. Marte, our second baseman, a 20-20 player. Got a 8-game streak with a quality start from Nola, so he finished up the season well. Amazing that this team ended up 89-73 in the playoffs. Take a look at that 7-6 victory. Got a run in the 9th, so it looks like Nola was probably not involved in the decision. Only 1 earned run over 5 2/3. That error by Ellie De La Cruz definitely cost us, but we got the victory. And just a stunning end to the season for these Reds. I'd like to say it was all the pitching and the changes that I made in shortstop and center field and backup catcher. I don't know what it was, but this team has caught absolute fire. The 18-9 record in August was actually bad compared to our 20-7 record in September, our 5-0 record in October. Ended up right in the middle of the pack, 7th in runs scored, but the pitching was just incredible over the last 2 months of the season. We somehow ended up 2nd in the National League in runs allowed, 2nd in bullpen ERA. Our starters' ERA got down to 7th. Just an incredible run by the team, particularly our pitching staff over these past 2+ months of the season. Defensive efficiency only average, zone rating 3rd best in the league. We ended up being 1 game better than our Pythagorean record. Ended up with a winning record at home, a winning record on the road. Our home record had been brutal. 10-1 in extra inning games, so a little bit lucky there. A little over 501 run games, but a absolutely shocking finish to the season for the Reds to get to 89 victories. And as I mentioned, The Diamondbacks did end up winning the NL West, but only with 87 wins, with that 2-8 finish for them. Our 9-1 finish, including 6 in a row, has the Reds with a first round bye and then home field advantage for whoever we end up playing. So just a stunning finish to the season by the Reds. We somehow have a first round bye, and we're going to be facing a team from the West, either the struggling Diamondbacks or the Padres, who also snuck into the playoffs. Diamondbacks 2-8 over their last 10, Padres 3-7 over their last 10. Nobody wanted to win that NL West. We are playing our best baseball of the year, so hopefully the time off doesn't get in the way of what we've done. As I mentioned, De La Cruz didn't end up winning the batting title, didn't end up winning, hitting 300, but did lead the league with 7 triples, 47 steals, and as I mentioned, a 30-30 season, 294 average, 31 homers. His first full year in the majors. So a big year from him. Lodolo and Burns end up 2-3 in the National League in wins. Clay Holmes ends up leading the league in saves with all those wins in August and September. Over in the AL, we have a Triple Crown winner. Aaron Judge of the Yankees, 328, 56 homers, and 142 ribbies, wins the Triple Crown for the Yankees, who look like they're a wild card team in the AL East. But we pulled this big season out of something. 89 wins, so 6 more wins than we had a year ago. Achieved ownership's goal of making in the playoffs, and we've got a first-round bye in the playoffs as well. So fantastic finish to the season for the Reds, and we'll see if our plucky Cincinnati squad can do something in the playoffs in our next episode. Until then, thank you so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.